In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a homemade, delicious chicken broth using chicken bones and vegetables. So let's get to it. Alright, so first step, you start with your chicken, obviously. But I got chicken thighs, skin on, bone in. Very important. That adds a lot of flavor, and that's what we're going to use to make the broth. So first thing we'll do, we're going to open this up, throw it on a tray, get it all seasoned front and back, and then we're going to roast it off. And that's going to help add a lot of extra flavor as well. Then we're going to let the chicken cool after it's completely cooked. And then we're going to take the skin off, take all the meat off, keep the meat separate. And then the bones and the skin, along with some other things you'll see later on, will be used to flavor the broth. We'll get our chicken laid on our baking pan here. See, there's a lot of extra skin on some of these pieces. Usually you'd cut that off if you're making a different type of dish, but for this instance it'll be fine to leave it on there. Alright, first I'm going to put some oil on it. This is peanut oil. You can use whatever kind you want. Sorry for my floor, it's got a little weak spot in it right here. That's what you hear, the crunching and creaking every now and then. And when you're messing with raw foods, keep one hand clean. Alright, we got all of our seasonings on. We just used some salt, pepper, garlic, some smoked paprika, and some ground cumin. That's where like a taco flavor Mexican vibe comes from right there, cumin. It's good stuff. But our chicken is all seasoned and ready to go in the oven. I'm going to cook it at a pretty low temperature at 250 degrees Fahrenheit. Something I would highly recommend is a digital thermometer. Wireless would be ideal, but they don't always have to be that way. They're a lot more expensive, the wireless ones are. But just put it in your meat somewhere. Not too far down, not touching a bone, but in a area that you think is the thickest part of the biggest piece of meat that you're cooking. And this will just give you a better idea of knowing when it's done without having to cut into it or anything like that. Alright, but that's all there is to that. So we're going to let the oven come up to temp and throw this in, and I'll see you after. Alright, we got our chicken roasted off now, and it's cooled down. So we're going to separate the skins and bones from the meat and get a little messy. So we'll do that now. Alright, we got everything separated now. Got my meat in one bowl and the bones and fat and skin in another bowl. Now you don't have to do this. You could just throw the chicken straight away in raw using the meat and everything, but I like to cook it for a long time to get the most flavor out of the bones, plus to add that roasted flavor from roasting it in the oven. And if you cook your chicken meat for too long, it might not be very good. Might be real rubbery and things like that. But I'm going to use my chicken for a different recipe. You'll see it in a different video, most likely, a chicken and dumplings. But we'll get our bones and everything in some water and get it slowly simmering on the stove, and then we'll catch back up with you from there. My cat bumped the tripod. Sorry about that. We'll just put all of our stuff in a pot there. Add cold water. That's probably enough for the amount of chicken parts we got. So we'll get it on the stove. Alright, we got our pot on the burner now. You don't want it to cook it too high. You don't want it to even boil, really. You can get it starting to boil and then crank it down. You want it just a low and slow simmer to slowly get all the flavors out of that chicken that you can. Then you want to cook it for 2 to 3 hours. And then about 3/4 of the way to wherever you want it, that's when we're going to add our vegetables and things like that, so we can get flavor from them as well, like carrot, celery, onion, garlic, things like that, plus our seasonings. Alright, so after a few minutes of getting your broth going, you're going to notice all this, we'll call it scum on top, and that's just the impurities and the fat being released, and they rise to the top. So if you want a more translucent and less greasy feeling broth, then you'll want to remove that. And the easy way to do it is get a swirl going. And you see all that stuff kind of goes out to the outside edges. And then just take your ladle and ladle it out. This will help give you a better quality broth. See, all that gunk just goes in there. You don't really necessarily want that in your broth. You can also do this several times during the cooking process if you notice your broth getting a scum on top of it. So like I said, just give it a swirl. All that stuff will go towards the outer edges, and then you can get rid of it with a ladle. And that's going to give you a much better looking broth in the end. So just keep an eye on it. But like every half hour or 45 minutes, come and check it, do the swirl, scoop that stuff out, and you'll have a much better broth. Alright, I went ahead and got all my vegetables and my garlic prepared off camera. And something I like to do is during the week, the pieces like this here, the celery end, the things that I don't use, I save it for my broth. It's perfectly fine. You're not going to eat it. You can even leave the outside part on the garlic, the onion. You don't have to peel the carrots or anything like that. It's all going to get drained, and if it happens to have any impurities, like I showed you before, it'll rise to the top. You do the swirl method and just get rid of it. But this is what I'm going to use to add to the chicken for a little extra flavor. But I am giving everything a good rinsing before it goes in. Alright, so our broth has been going for about an hour and a half roughly at this point. We got a lot of color added to that water from just those little bit of chicken parts. There's a little bit of fat I can see on the top of it, but that's okay. Honestly, whenever you portion it up and put it in the refrigerator, if there is any fat or anything, it's going to solidify at the top of the container, and it'll make it easy to scoop out. But right now we're going to add our vegetables. Got some onion. Get our big celery piece in there. Carrots, a couple more celery. I might not use all of this other than 100% of the garlic. But we can just save the rest for other things. More carrots. Alright, I think that'll be good. We got a good amount of everything in there. And so we'll put the leftover vegetables back in the refrigerator. And now we're going to do a little bit of seasoning with some salt. There's been no seasonings added to this point yet. And we're not going to season it heavily until it's closer to being done. Right here we got some parsley. Some black pepper. Some oregano. And I forgot to set it out. Where is my basil? Alright, there's my basil. Alright, then a little bit of secret, some accent. What this is monosodium glutamate, which is, if you're into a lot of Chinese cooking, you'll know this is MSG. They use it, it adds flavor to everything. So just add you a little bit of that in there, not too much. And boom. Then we'll stir that up. Which is kind of hard. You see where our liquid level has gone down a little bit from what we scooped out and from things that have evaporated. So what I'm going to do right now is add a little bit of water back in. Just a little bit, about a cup or so. And that's it. Then we're going to let this go for another 45 minutes to an hour. And then I'll take it and strain it out and see what the broth looks like. Alright, I think our broth is done now. We'll strain it all out, and I'll do it in a clear bowl so everybody can see exactly what it looks like. We'll let all that strain for a minute. Alright, and there's our final product. You can see a little bit of that on the top that you could scoop out if you want to, but I'm just going to leave it. Like I said, once it cools down after you portion it up and put it in the refrigerator, it will separate and you can just get rid of that top layer. So let's get a good look at the coloring on it. There you go. Looks pretty good. I definitely recommend getting some portioning cups of different sizes. These ones are larger than your medium ones, and they make even smaller ones too. I don't have any of those yet, but I plan on getting some. Yeah, let's give her a little taste. It's going to be very hot, but that's alright. It's pretty good. Not the best broth I ever made, but it's top 5, 6 probably. Yep, that's pretty good. That'd be a good base for chicken noodle soup, chicken and dumplings, you know, chicken and rice. You can use this to cook the rice in instead of water. But yeah, that's pretty much it. You don't have to do this, but I'm going to portion it up in these different little cups. And you can even freeze these if you want for, you know, 2 or 3 months. Or just keep it in your refrigerator. Alright, so there we go. I ended up with 4 different portions of it. And this will save me a lot of trouble during the next week or 2. Or like I said, maybe I want to freeze it and then pull it out a day ahead of time. And it'll be good to go. Save a lot of time, make it all at once. And if you got a bigger family, obviously you can make a lot more of this than I did here. But that's it, guys. Hopefully you learned something. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to watch my video. If you enjoyed it, hit like, do me a favor and subscribe, share it out, anything to help me grow. It's all much appreciated. But thanks for watching, and stay hungry.